Good evening. You're listening to Continental Emergency Radio, and we need your full attention right now. My name is Alex Mercer, and what I'm about to tell you has been verified through multiple independent sources, through official government channels in at least 6 countries, and through our own network correspondents who are on the ground, in the air, and at sea. This is not a drill. This is not a test of the emergency broadcast system. What is happening right now, at this moment, across every ocean and every continent on this planet, is something that no journalist, no scientist, no military strategist, no theologian has ever had to report on in the history of recorded human civilization. At approximately 9:47 this morning, Eastern Standard Time, a signal was received simultaneously by every radio telescope array on Earth. Every single one. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile confirmed it first. Then the Very Large Array in New Mexico. Then the Square Kilometer Array precursor facilities in Western Australia. The signal was not random noise. It was not pulsar interference. It was not solar flare activity. It was structured. It was mathematical. And within 47 minutes of its initial reception, 17 of the world's leading astrophysicists, working independently on different continents, had reached the same conclusion. The signal is artificial in origin, and it did not come from Earth.
I want to echo everything Alex just said, and add something that I think matters deeply as we begin this coverage. There are people listening to this right now in their cars, pulling over on the side of the highway. There are people sitting in their kitchens with their children. There are elderly people who turned on the radio for the morning weather and found this instead. I want you to know that we are here with you. This station will not go off the air. Our engineers have confirmed backup power, and we have a satellite uplink that is currently functioning. Whatever happens in the next hours, the next days, you will have this voice. You will have Alex's voice. We are not going anywhere. Now, what we can tell you at this early stage is that the signal, which has been given the working designation Contact Event Alpha by the International Astronomical Union's Emergency Committee, was accompanied by something visible. And I want to be precise here because the word I'm about to use has been abused so many times in popular culture that it has almost lost its meaning. But I will use it plainly and professionally. At approximately the same moment the signal was received, 17 distinct objects of non-terrestrial origin entered low Earth orbit. Not one. 17. And they are not moving.
To be precise about what Sierra just described, the objects are currently positioned at an altitude of approximately 340 kilometers above the Earth's surface, which places them within the orbital band traditionally occupied by the International Space Station. We've confirmed that the ISS has been maneuvered to a safe distance by Mission Control in Houston. ESA has also confirmed communication with their crew aboard. The objects themselves are described by every tracking agency that has eyes on them as approximately 2 kilometers in length and between 400 and 600 meters in diameter at their widest cross-section. They are ellipsoidal in shape. They are dark. They reflect almost no light, which is why they were not detected before orbital insertion. An insertion that, according to our tracking data, occurred in less than 90 seconds. For context, the fastest object ever launched by human civilization reached its peak velocity of approximately 70 kilometers per second. These objects reached orbital insertion speed from a standing start, or what appeared to be a standing start, in a time frame that our physicists are currently describing as, and I'm quoting directly, physically inconsistent with any known model of propulsion. That is where we are. It has been roughly 2 hours since first contact confirmation.
We're getting listener messages already, and I want to read a few of them because they speak to where people are emotionally right now, which matters. This one is from a woman in Christchurch, New Zealand, who writes, "I'm sitting in my garden. It's evening here. I can see one of them. It's just there, above the horizon. It doesn't look frightening, it looks like a dark moon. My children keep asking me if we're going to be okay, and I keep saying yes, because what else do you say? Another one from a man in Lagos, Nigeria. The markets have stopped. No one is buying or selling. Everyone is looking at their phones, looking at the sky. There's a strange quiet over the city. And this one, from someone who identifies only as a nurse at a hospital in Osaka, Japan. We've had 3 cardiac events in the last hour related to shock and panic. Please tell people to breathe. Please tell them that panicking will not help. I want to echo that nurse's message. Please, if you are in a safe location, stay there. Breathe. Keep listening. We will tell you everything we know as we learn it.
We have just received, and I want to read this verbatim, an official statement from the Office of the United Nations Secretary General, released approximately 4 minutes ago. Quote, "The United Nations Security Council has convened in emergency session. All member states have been notified. The Secretary General calls for global calm and global cooperation. An emergency joint communiqué from the heads of state of the United States, the Russian Federation, the People's Republic of China, the European Union, India, Brazil, and the African Union will be issued within the hour. All military forces worldwide are being urged to stand down and to avoid any action that could be interpreted as hostile. The objects have made no aggressive move. The signal continues to repeat. We are listening. We are responding." End quote. That statement is the most important piece of official communication we've received so far, and I want to underscore one thing in particular. The signal continues to repeat. That means whatever message was sent to us this morning is being sent again and again, and our scientists have not yet decoded what it says beyond its mathematical structure. What the mathematics tells us is this: the signal is a countdown.
A countdown. I want to sit with that word for a moment because I know every person listening just felt their stomach drop. A countdown to what, we don't yet know. What the scientists can tell us is the structure of the signal. It is based on prime numbers, which is a universal mathematical language, not a human language, not an English or Mandarin or Swahili or Arabic language, but a mathematical one. It encodes a sequence that decrements, meaning it counts downward. Based on the rate of decrement, the researchers at the Signal Intelligence Center in Geneva estimate that the countdown will reach 0 in approximately 30 days. 30 days from this morning. That is not a confirmed figure. It is an estimate based on early analysis, and we will update it as the science develops. But I think we owe it to you to say that number plainly. 30 days. And we don't know what happens when it reaches 0. What we do know is that the objects in orbit have been completely still. No weapons have been deployed. No communications beyond the original signal have been received. Whatever this is, it is not yet an attack. It is a message. And the most urgent work on Earth right now is figuring out what that message says.
We're about 3 hours into this, and we're beginning to see the first systemic effects on infrastructure. This was predictable, and it is important. The financial markets in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Sydney closed early this morning after trading algorithms triggered cascading sell orders within the first 20 minutes of confirmation. The Nikkei suspended trading. The Australian Stock Exchange suspended trading. We have reports from Mumbai that the Bombay Stock Exchange is implementing circuit breakers. This is not economic collapse, let me be clear. These are systems working as designed to prevent panic-driven freefall. What is more concerning is the communications infrastructure. We're seeing the first signs of network saturation. Internet backbone operators in Europe and North America are reporting traffic volumes that exceed anything seen previously, including during the most intense periods of the COVID-19 pandemic. Social media platforms are reportedly experiencing significant slowdowns. I want to say something plainly here. If your internet is slow or unavailable, Your radio is the single most reliable source of information you have right now. The radio infrastructure is designed specifically for mass emergencies. Keep it on.
We've just been patched into a correspondent in Cairo, Egypt. This is a live connection, and I want our listeners to hear this directly. Go ahead, Cairo.
We're told the connection is coming through now. Cairo correspondent, you're on Continental Emergency Radio. Please tell us what you're seeing.
It appears we've lost that connection. I want to relay what was sent to us by text before the call dropped. Our correspondent in Cairo says the Nile is visible from the roof of their building and the city is, quote, unnervingly still. Government vehicles are moving through the streets with loudspeakers, but the messages are in Arabic and our correspondent is still translating. What they can confirm is that the Egyptian military has deployed to the streets of Cairo, Alexandria, and Port Said. The deployment is described as orderly. It does not appear to be martial law. It appears to be a precautionary show of presence intended to prevent civil unrest rather than respond to it. Our correspondent also notes that the mosques across the city have begun their calls to prayer simultaneously, even though it is not prayer time. They describe the sound as extraordinary. Quote, every minaret at once, the whole city praying at the same time. I find that worth reporting.
It has now been 6 hours since the initial signal confirmation. In that time, the following has occurred. The 17 orbital objects have not moved or changed in any way that our instruments can detect. The countdown signal has been confirmed by 112 research institutions across 43 countries as authentic and consistent. The United Nations has officially activated its Outer Space Treaty emergency protocols for the first time in history. The United States Space Command has elevated its readiness posture, but has explicitly stated, and this is a direct quote from the Pentagon, no hostile intent has been observed, and no hostile action is being considered at this time. Russia's Ministry of Defense has issued a near-identical statement. China's People's Liberation Army Strategic Support Force has confirmed that their space surveillance network is tracking all 17 objects, and they are sharing data in real time with the International Monitoring Coalition. That last point is significant. Data sharing between these three powers happens rarely and slowly. It is happening now in real time. That is either a sign of how serious this is, or a sign that the world is rising to the moment, or both.
We have the first official casualty report, and it is important to contextualize what it represents. The World Health Organization has confirmed 11 deaths worldwide that are directly attributable to contact event alpha. Not to any action by the objects, none have been observed. These 11 deaths are attributed to acute cardiac events, traffic accidents caused by distracted driving, and 2 instances of crowd crushing in public spaces where large groups gather to watch the sky simultaneously. In Mumbai, a crowd of approximately 40,000 people gathered on Marine Drive to look upward, and a crush near one of the access roads injured 22 people, 3 of whom are in serious condition. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, a similar spontaneous gathering in Paulista Avenue saw several injuries. The WHO is urging governments to manage public gathering and to issue clear guidance. The Brazilian government has issued a statement asking citizens to remain indoors or in designated public viewing areas with crowd management. These numbers will change. They will almost certainly increase as the hours pass and the reality of the situation settles into people's nervous systems. But right now, 11. Hold that number.
We have breaking information, and I want to deliver it carefully. At approximately 1600 hours Greenwich Mean Time, one of the 17 orbital objects, the one designated Object 7 in the International Tracking System, currently positioned above the South Pacific, approximately equidistant from New Zealand, Chile, and the Antarctic ice shelf, emitted a pulse. I want to be precise about what that means. It was an electromagnetic pulse, not an explosive one. It was not a weapon discharge as we currently understand weapon discharge. It lasted approximately 4 seconds, It had a radius of effect of roughly 2,000 kilometers from the object's position. In that radius, which extends primarily over open ocean, but clips the southern tip of New Zealand's South Island and reaches the coast of southern Chile, all electronic devices experienced a complete and instantaneous shutdown. The pulse then ended. And here is the critical piece of information. Everything came back on. Every device, every grid, every communication system that the pulse affected, it came back online approximately 90 seconds after the pulse ended. Nothing was permanently damaged. Our interpretation, and I am being careful to call this an interpretation, is that this was a demonstration of capability, not a use of it.
The 90 seconds of darkness over southern New Zealand and southern Chile. I want to tell you what that meant for the people there. Our correspondent in Invercargill, which is one of the southernmost cities in New Zealand and fell within the pulse zone, sent us this message the moment communications were restored. He writes, "It went dark, everything. My phone, the streetlights, the hospital across the road, the cars on the street. Complete silence. Not the silence of a power outage. We've had those. This was different. This was total. Even battery-operated devices. Even my watch. For 90 seconds, this city was as dark and quiet as it must have been before electricity existed. And then, like a breath coming back into a body, everything returned at once. Every light, every screen, every engine. The city exhaled." He ends with, "We are frightened here, but we are unharmed." That message, I think, is one of the most important pieces of testimony we've received so far, and I'm grateful to him for sending it.
It's now been approximately 10 hours since the signal was first confirmed. The scientific community's analysis of the countdown has been refined. The initial estimate of 30 days has been narrowed significantly. The current consensus, based on mathematical analysis by research teams in Geneva, Cambridge, Thai, the Indian Institute of Astrophysics in Bangalore, and the Beijing National Astronomical Observatory, is that the countdown reaches zero in 28 days, 14 hours, and approximately 36 minutes from the time of the initial signal. That places the terminal point at a specific moment that has already been widely shared across every media platform on Earth. I will not sensationalize it by calling it a deadline or a detonation point, because we do not know what it signifies. What the scientific community has additionally confirmed is this: the mathematical structure of the signal beyond the countdown contains encoded information. It is complex. It is dense. And the preliminary analysis suggests it is, in fact, a message, not just a countdown, but a warning accompanied by an explanation. The decoding work is ongoing, and we expect partial translations within the next 12 hours.
I want to talk about what's happening to ordinary life right now, because it matters and because it's what most of our listeners are living. School systems across North America and Europe have suspended classes indefinitely. Airlines are still flying, but passenger loads have dropped by approximately 60% as of 6 hours ago, and several carriers have voluntarily suspended international routes as flight crews invoke safety concerns. The global shipping industry is continuing to operate, which is significant. The world still needs food, fuel, and medicine, and the shipping lanes are still moving. Grocery stores in several major cities are reporting elevated purchasing activity. Not panic buying at the level of early COVID shortages, but a distinct uptick. Canned goods, bottled water, batteries, prescription medications. Pharmacies in Berlin, London, Paris, Toronto, and Sydney are reporting queues. This is what people do when they feel uncertain. They prepare. That is a rational response. If you are in a position to have a few extra days of supplies in your home, doing so is sensible and does not mean you are giving up hope.
We have just received the first partial translation of the signal's embedded message. I am going to read this slowly and clearly because it is the most significant piece of information we have received. This translation was produced collaboratively by teams at the SETI Institute, the European Space Agency's Communication Intelligence Group, and a joint team from Tsinghua University and Oxford University. It is partial, and portions remain unclear or contested, but this is the current working translation, designated Translation Draft 1. Quote, "To the inhabitants of the third orbital body, you have been observed. Your development has been assessed. You have reached the threshold. The threshold is defined as the capacity for self-annihilation exceeding the capacity for self-preservation. You are not the first to reach this threshold. The options before you are as follows. Reduction. Your technological capacity will be returned to a level at which self-annihilation is not possible, and you will be allowed to continue. Transition. You will be guided to integration with the community of observed civilizations, forfeiting independent development. Cessation. The inhabited biosphere will be terminated to prevent propagation of the threshold condition. You have 28 days to demonstrate which option you have chosen. The method of demonstration will be made known. Silence will be interpreted as cessation. End of translation." Draft 1.
I need a moment. And I think our listeners do too. Alex, can you read the three options again just slowly?
Yes. Option 1. Reduction. Our technology is rolled back. We survive, but as a civilization set back by potentially centuries. Option 2. Transition. We join them. We give up our independence. We become part of whatever structure they represent. Option 3. Cessation. They end us. And silence. Our failure to respond, our failure to choose, means they choose for us, and they choose cessation. That is what the message says. That is what 30 of the world's foremost linguists and mathematicians believe it says, based on the best current translation. We have 28 days.
The world is now aware of this translation. It was shared simultaneously with every government on Earth by the UN's Office for Outer Space Affairs approximately 40 minutes ago, and it is already leaked to every major news organization on the planet. There is no containing this information, nor should there be. People have a right to know what is being proposed to be done in their name. What I want to say as clearly as I can is that the work of choosing, the most consequential decision in the history of our species, is now underway. And I want our listeners to know that their voices matter in that process. Governments are already fielding input from scientists, ethicists, military commanders, religious leaders. The UN has announced that it will hold an open session in 72 hours where civil society organizations from every region will have the floor. This is not only a decision for heads of state, the message was addressed to all of us. The response must come from all of us.
We're now 14 hours into this event, and I want to give a structured update on the global situation. Power grid stability. Currently holding in North America, Europe, East Asia, and South Asia. Several grids in sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Southeast Asia that rely on older infrastructure are experiencing stress, not from the objects, but from the demand surge. People turning on televisions, charging devices, flooding radio stations with calls. Grid operators in those regions are asking for conservation. Communication infrastructure. The internet is degraded globally, running at approximately 60 to 65% of normal throughput. Emergency communication systems, including this broadcast network, are functioning at full capacity on dedicated circuits. Military posture globally. All major nuclear powers have confirmed their forces are at heightened alert, but no state has moved to offensive posture. NATO has invoked Article 4, consultations, but not Article 5. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization has issued a joint statement of non-aggression. For now, the world is not fighting itself. That is perhaps the most remarkable thing about the last 14 hours.
We have a caller. This is coming through our emergency listener line, and I want to put this person on the air because they asked for it, and I think what they want to say deserves to be heard. You're on Continental Emergency Radio. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, caller. We're listening.
The caller is identifying herself as Dr. Adaeze Okonkwo, and she is a professor of applied ethics at the University of Lagos. She sent us a written message that I'm going to read on her behalf because her phone connection is too degraded for live audio. She writes, I have spent 20 years studying the ethics of human technological development. I want to say something that might sound strange. The message we received today is the most honest thing anyone has ever said to us about ourselves. We are demonstrably a civilization whose capacity to destroy exceeds our capacity to preserve. We have known this for 80 years, since the first nuclear detonations. We have built enough weapons to end all complex life on Earth many times over, and we have spent decades arguing about whether to reduce them rather than simply doing so. Whatever these beings are, they are not wrong about the threshold condition. The question is not whether we deserve to be judged. The question is what we choose to do with the judgment. I wanted to share that because I think Dr. Okonkwo has said something that needs to be said clearly and without flinching.
It is now 22 hours since Contact Event Alpha began. We have new information on two fronts. First, the pulse event over the South Pacific has been followed by two additional pulses, both in the last 3 hours. Pulse 2 occurred over the North Atlantic, centered approximately 800 kilometers southwest of Iceland, and affected a zone that included portions of the Faroe Islands and the outer reaches of Iceland's southern coast. Same pattern, complete electromagnetic blackout, 90 seconds, full recovery. No permanent damage, no casualties. Pulse 3 occurred over Central Asia, centered above the Kazakh steppe. It affected a zone that included the city of Kyzylorda in Kazakhstan and reached the borders of Uzbekistan. Again, full recovery. The pulses are appearing to follow a pattern that our analysts are describing as demonstrative. They are not random. They are positioned to show range and precision. They are showing us what they can do without doing it permanently. This is communication through demonstration.
It is now the end of our first full day of coverage. I have been on this air for more than 20 hours, and Alex has been here with me for all of it. I want to be honest with you before we hand off to our overnight team. I am frightened. Not in a way that paralyzes me, but in the way that I think honest people are frightened when they understand the scale of something fully. What I keep returning to is the ordinary things. The nurse in Osaka who asked us to tell people to breathe. The woman in Christchurch sitting in her garden with her children. The city of Cairo praying together at the wrong time. The man in Invercargill watching his city go dark and come back. These are human moments, and I believe in the presence of something this large. Human moments are what we must hold on to. The countdown stands at 27 days, approximately 16 hours. We will be here tomorrow. We will be here the day after that. Do not let go of each other tonight.
Before we hand to the overnight team, I want to give you the hard numbers as they stand right now, 24 hours in. 23 deaths attributable to indirect effects of Contact Event Alpha, all from civilian panic, medical emergencies, and civil disorder, not from any action by the objects. Roughly 40 nations have declared states of emergency, though most of these are administrative designations that activate emergency resource allocation, not martial law. The United Nations Security Council has been in continuous session. 3 partial translations of the signal's message are now in circulation, and while they vary in specific wording, their essential content is consistent with what we reported earlier. 3 options, 28 days, silence means cessation. The objects remain stationary. The countdown continues. Tomorrow, the hard work of what the human race will actually do begins.
We're back. It is day 3 of our coverage of Contact Event Alpha, and the world has changed in ways that are subtle and enormous simultaneously. Alex, walk us through the overnight developments.
In the last 48 hours, the following has occurred. The pulse events have continued on a roughly 8-hour cycle. We have now had 9 pulses in total in 9 different geographic locations. The pattern of these pulses has been analyzed, and our analysts believe they are not random and not merely demonstrative. They appear to be calibrated to affect specific systems. Pulse 6 targeted the Strait of Hormuz region, and while it caused only 90 seconds of blackout, it affected the navigation and communication systems of 41 vessels in transit, including 3 oil tankers. They recovered, but the message to the global energy supply chain appears deliberate. Pulse 7 targeted a zone encompassing Cape Canaveral and the Kennedy Space Center. Full recovery. But the message, to our launch capability, seems clear. Pulse 8 was centered above Lop Nur in western China, historically one of China's nuclear test sites. No accident in that positioning. The 9th pulse, approximately 4 hours ago, was above the European Center for Nuclear Research, CERN, in Switzerland. Again, full recovery. These are not random. They are a catalog of our most powerful and potentially destructive technologies.
On day 3, the humanitarian situation is beginning to show strain. What we're seeing is not yet a full refugee crisis, but the early conditions for one. In coastal cities below sea level, and in island nations particularly, governments are receiving enormous pressure from citizens who want to evacuate inland. The Maldives government has requested emergency relocation support from India and Sri Lanka, not because of any immediate physical threat, but because of the psychological reality of living on an island that averages less than 2 meters above sea level, when you believe something in orbit can turn your power off at will. Bangladesh has seen approximately 2 million people attempt to move from coastal areas toward Dhaka in the last 48 hours. Roads are overwhelmed. Dhaka's infrastructure is under severe strain. UNHCR has deployed emergency teams. We're also seeing significant movement in the Pacific Island nations. Fiji, Tuvalu, Kiribati, governments are in emergency session. The Kiribati president has issued a statement asking Australia and New Zealand for formal evacuation support. Neither country has officially refused, but neither has agreed to the scale of what's being asked.
It is now day 5, and I have to report that the casualty count has risen to 211 deaths globally. The vast majority of these are from indirect causes, traffic accidents during evacuation movements, hospital system failures as staff abandon posts, and 2 separate incidents of armed conflict. I want to report these precisely. In the border region between Ethiopia and Eritrea, a skirmish broke out when an Eritrean military unit moved toward the border in what Ethiopian forces interpreted as an aggressive maneuver. 6 soldiers died. The UN has confirmed ceasefire negotiations are underway. In the Philippines, civil unrest in Manila's Tondo district led to a confrontation between police and protesters, resulting in 4 civilian deaths. Human rights organizations are calling for a full investigation. These are the first deaths attributable to human conflict since Contact Event Alpha began, and they matter enormously. They are exactly the kind of threshold behavior the message described.
Day 5 brings us the first major official government response to the 3 options. The French Republic, speaking on behalf of the European Union, has issued a formal position paper submitted to the UN Emergency Council. France and the EU reject option 3, cessation, as a choice they would ever make. They reject option 2, transition, on the grounds that it requires surrendering human sovereignty and cannot be agreed to without what they term authentic global democratic deliberation. They express openness to further discussion of option 1 reduction, but note significant definitional questions about what level of technological rollback is implied and what guarantees exist against further intervention. This is a carefully worded document. It does not agree to anything. It does not antagonize. It is, in essence, saying, we want to keep talking. And that may be exactly the right message to send at this stage.
On day 7, the pulse pattern has changed, and this change is significant. The pulses are now lasting longer than 90 seconds. Pulse 14, which occurred above the mid-Pacific, lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Pulse 15 over northern Siberia lasted 6 minutes. Pulse 16 occurred 3 hours ago above the northeastern coast of Japan, encompassing the cities of Sendai and Morioka. It lasted 9 minutes. During those 9 minutes, Sendai, a city of approximately 1 million people, had no power, no communication, no functioning electronic device. Hospitals switched to manual procedures. Traffic signals failed. 3 people died. 1 in a hospital whose backup systems were also affected. 1 in a traffic accident, and 1 from a fall in a darkened stairwell. The duration is increasing. The message is changing from "we can do this" to "we will do this, and for longer, and to more of you." The countdown stands at 21 days, approximately 8 hours.
I want to read a message from a listener in Sendai, which came through our SMS emergency line after communications were restored. They write, 9 minutes is a very long time when you are in surgery. The doctors continued by flashlight, by mobile phone light, by whatever they could find. I watched them from the doorway. They were operating on my mother. They did not stop. The surgeon's hands did not shake. My mother survived. I don't know what choices our governments will make in the next 3 weeks, but I know that human beings are capable of tremendous things in the dark. I will not add anything to that.
Day 10 update. The global situation has deteriorated in several measurable ways, and I want to be accurate about each one. Global shipping has been significantly disrupted. 11 major container shipping lines have suspended or severely curtailed routes in the Pacific and Indian Oceans following a series of pulse events that, while not causing permanent damage, have disrupted navigation systems and made captains unwilling to risk open sea transits with electronic systems that can be switched off without warning. The Port of Shanghai, the Port of Singapore, and the Port of Rotterdam are all operating at reduced capacity. Global food supply chains are stressed, but not yet broken. The World Food Program has issued a warning that food-insecure populations in the Horn of Africa and the Sahel region will begin to face genuine shortages within 3 weeks if shipping disruptions are not resolved. A 3-week window that corresponds almost exactly with the countdown. The International Monetary Fund has suspended normal operations. The stock markets that are still open are operating under emergency circuit breaker rules that prevent meaningful price discovery. The global economy is not in free fall, but it is holding its breath.
The refugee situation has become the most acute humanitarian crisis of this event. By day 10, UNHCR estimates that 180 million people are in active internal displacement, meaning they have moved within their own country, away from coasts, away from major cities, away from what they perceive as targets. An additional 20 million are crossing international borders in informal movements that no existing refugee system was designed to handle. The largest flows are from Pacific Island nations toward Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific coast of North America. The Philippines toward Taiwan, Japan, and mainland East Asia. Bangladesh and coastal India toward inland population centers. The Netherlands, Belgium, and Denmark are experiencing significant outflows toward Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. The German government, which accepted this internal migration with remarkable efficiency in the early days, is now at approximately 120% of its stated absorption capacity. Chancellor's office issued a statement yesterday describing the situation as, quote, at the very limit of what is logistically possible.
Day 12. The pulse events have now reached durations of 40 minutes in isolated cases. Pulse 23, which occurred above the eastern coast of Australia, encompassing Brisbane and the Gold Coast, lasted 42 minutes. In those 42 minutes, Brisbane, a metropolitan area of approximately 2.5 million people, was functionally returned to a pre-electrical state. Hospitals lost power. Water treatment plants, which rely on electrically powered pumps, stopped functioning. Traffic systems failed across the city. Emergency services attempted to operate using pre-assigned protocols for power outages, but the scale and totality of the blackout exceeded those protocols. 12 people died in Brisbane during those 42 minutes. 12 in 42 minutes. The system is not demonstrating capability anymore. The system is demonstrating cost. 300 kilometers of highway leading west out of Brisbane have been reported as essentially gridlocked by motorists attempting to relocate. The Australian government has declared a national emergency and called up all reserve military personnel. The New Zealand government has followed suit. This is where we are on day 12.
I want to talk about what is holding together right now because I think we sometimes fail to report it adequately. Hospitals across Australia have activated mutual aid compacts, and there are extraordinary stories of medical staff sleeping in their hospitals rather than going home, because home means not being there when the next pulse comes. In Brisbane's Royal Women's Hospital, nursing staff delivered 11 babies during the 42-minute blackout using flashlights, portable lanterns, and the light from staff members holding mobile phones. 11 births into that darkness, every one of them safe. In Manila, where civil unrest earlier threatened to become something much worse, a coalition of local civic organizations, churches, neighborhood councils, a network of community food kitchens have been operating a parallel emergency response system that has, by some accounts, been more effective than the official government response. These people are not waiting for permission. They are doing what humans do when pushed to their limits. They are taking care of each other.
It is now day 14, the halfway point. And I have to report that the global consensus on how to respond to the three options has shifted significantly in the last 48 hours, and not in a unified direction. The political fracture that has emerged is roughly as follows. A coalition of nations, led by the United States, the European Union, and Japan, is advocating for a strategy of extended engagement, meaning continued dialogue, continued attempts to understand the message more fully, and a request to the objects for more time and more information before any formal response. This coalition argues that committing to any of the three options without fully understanding their terms is equivalent to signing a contract without reading it. A second coalition, led by India, Brazil, South Africa, Nigeria, and Indonesia, is advocating for a conditional acceptance of option 1, reduction, on the grounds that it represents the best trade-off between human survival and some degree of continued self-determination. A third position, represented by a small number of states, but with significant public support in surveys across many nations, advocates for non-response as a form of rejection, effectively calling the potential bluff. If the entities are unwilling to commit cessation against a species that does not respond, then non-response is a form of resistance. The risk of this third position requires no explanation.
The countdown stands at 14 days, 0 hours. On this 14th day, the deaths attributable to contact event Alpha have reached 1,417. The majority of these, 812, are from what emergency management agencies are calling displacement-related mortality. People who died in accidents, from exposure, from medical emergencies, and from violence while moving within or between countries. The pulse-related deaths stand at 241. Conflict deaths attributable to tensions created or worsened by the event stand at 364 across 17 separate incidents in 12 countries. Every one of these people had a name. I want to say that plainly. Every single one.
Day 16. The pulses have crossed a new threshold. We have had our first multi-city simultaneous event. At 0400 hours this morning, Greenwich Mean Time, 3 pulses occurred simultaneously above London, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo. Each lasted 1 hour and 17 minutes. London, a city of 9 million people. The tube stopped. The city's financial systems, though already suspended from normal trading, lost all data connectivity. Gatwick and Heathrow airports, already operating at minimal capacity, were completely dark for that hour and 17 minutes. St. Thomas's Hospital lost power, and 3 patients on life support died before manual interventions could be effected. In Mumbai, similar scenes. Trains stopped mid-journey. The desalination plant serving the northern suburbs failed. In Sao Paulo, the highway system, already overwhelmed with displacement traffic, became a stationary grid of dark, engine-dead vehicles. 41 people died across the 3 cities during those 77 minutes. The pulse events are no longer demonstrations. They are attrition.
We are receiving reports from the Vatican in Rome, which was not affected by the London pulse, but where an extraordinary gathering has taken place. The Pope has convened an emergency meeting attended by leaders from the Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox churches, the Anglican Communion, representatives of Sunni and Shia Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and several other major faith traditions. They have spent 3 days in continuous dialogue and have issued a joint statement. I'm going to read its key passage. We affirm the dignity and value of human life without reservation. We affirm the right of all humans to exist. We also affirm our responsibility as leaders of traditions that collectively guide the moral conscience of more than 5 billion people to speak honestly about what this moment requires of us. We believe that the preservation of human life is the supreme obligation, and that any choice which accomplishes this, including reduction of those technologies that most threaten each other, is consonant with the deepest teachings of our traditions. We call upon our governments to choose life. That statement has been signed by leaders representing faith communities with a combined membership of approximately 5.3 billion people. It is the largest statement of collective religious consensus in recorded history.
Day 18. I have to report significant infrastructure failure in several locations. The Three Gorges Dam in China, the world's largest hydroelectric facility, experienced a complete system shutdown during a 40-minute pulse event over central China's Yangtze River basin. For 40 minutes, the dam's electronic control systems, which manage water flow through its turbines and gates, were non-functional. The dam itself was not physically damaged. The engineers on site responded with extraordinary competence, maintaining manual control of critical systems. But the downstream cities of Yichang and Wuhan, which depend on the dam for both power and flood management, experienced significant disruption. The Chinese government has not released full casualty figures, but independent estimates suggest at least 30 deaths during the incident. China's State Council has issued a statement calling for an immediate international response to what it terms, quote, the systematic targeting of critical human infrastructure. It is the strongest language any major government has used to describe the pulses, and notably, it does not say what response they are proposing.
Day 20. We are in the final third of the countdown period, and the nature of the coverage has changed again. I want to acknowledge that. In the first days, we were reporting on something unprecedented. Now we are reporting on something that has become, in a terrible way, routine. People have adapted to this new reality because humans adapt. It is our most remarkable characteristic and sometimes our most dangerous one. There are communities in rural Canada, in inland Kenya, in the highlands of Peru and Bolivia that have seen relatively little direct disruption from the pulse events and where life has continued in something approaching its normal rhythm. These communities have become, intentionally or not, nodes of stability in a destabilizing world. People are moving toward them. Farmers are farming. Teachers who stayed at their posts are teaching. The impulse toward ordinary life is powerful and worth reporting.
Day 22. 6 days remain. The UN Emergency Council has formally submitted what it is calling the Humanity Response Proposal to the Signal. The method of submission was the radio telescope arrays, broadcasting a structured mathematical response on the same frequency as the original signal. The response is a request. It asks the entities to clarify the terms of Option 1 and Option 2, to specify what guarantees exist against further intervention following any choice, and to provide more time for what the proposal describes as authentic collective deliberation. The response was transmitted 4 hours ago. Whether it has been received and whether there will be any reply before the countdown ends is unknown. What I can confirm is that one of the 17 objects briefly changed its orientation for approximately 90 seconds after the transmission was sent and before returning to its previous position. Whether this indicates receipt, consideration, or something else entirely, our scientists are not able to say with confidence.
The casualty count stands at 4,008 as of day 22. The largest single source of death remains displacement-related mortality, the grinding, unglamorous, tragic cost of a world in motion. More than 300 million people are currently displaced from their normal homes. The largest refugee movements in recorded history were roughly 65 million people during World War II and approximately 100 million during the combined crises of the early 21st century. This is 300 million. The UNHCR has described its resources as catastrophically insufficient and has issued an emergency call for governments to open borders unconditionally. 42 countries have complied. The others are struggling with the political and logistical realities of populations that are terrified and moving.
Day 24. 4 days remain. We have received a response to the Humanity Response Proposal. It arrived via the same signal channel this morning. The translation team, now grown to over 300 linguists and mathematicians working in rotating shifts at the UN facility in Vienna, has produced Translation Draft 7. I will read the relevant new content. Quote, "The request for clarification is acknowledged. Option 1. The technological capacity referenced is specifically the capacity for large-scale organized destruction at the level of civilization termination or biosphere collapse. Reduction will be applied to all such systems simultaneously. Individual technological development below this threshold will not be affected. There are no guarantees beyond the cessation of monitoring observation, which will occur following any choice other than cessation. Option 2. Transition requires voluntary and consensual participation and cannot be applied to an unwilling civilization. Option 3 remains as stated. The countdown is not negotiable. Silence is cessation." End of translation. Draft 7. The key new information. Reduction means specifically the elimination of civilization-ending weaponry and technologies. Not all technology, not electricity, not medicine, the nuclear arsenals, the biological weapons programs, the most extreme destructive capabilities. That changes the calculus significantly.
Let me say what that means in plain terms, because I think it needs to be said plainly. If the translation is accurate, and there is still some margin of uncertainty, then Option 1 does not return us to the Stone Age. It does not remove the internet or hospitals or clean water or aircraft. It targets specifically the weapons of mass destruction, the missiles. the warheads, the nerve agents, the programs designed to kill not individuals but populations. And I want to ask something out loud, on the air, that I think many people are asking in their own hearts. If those things disappeared overnight, would our world be worse? Would we be less? I am not a politician or a strategist. I am a journalist. But I think that question deserves to be asked in the open.
Day 25. 3 days remain. The Russian Federation, in a statement released through the UN Secretary General's office, has formally indicated that it is prepared to accept the terms of Option 1 as described in the latest transmission. It is the first major nuclear power to do so. The statement is careful. It does not commit unconditionally. It does not surrender any sovereignty. But it says that Russia finds the described parameters of Option 1 to be consistent with the continued existence and dignity of the Russian people, and is prepared to move toward acceptance. The United States has not yet issued a comparable statement, but our correspondents in Washington report that the White House has been in continuous closed session for 36 hours. We know that the U.S. nuclear command and control infrastructure has been the subject of 3 direct pulse events in the last 4 days. We know that the Pentagon's technical assessment of those events is that the objects can, if they choose, disable the U.S. nuclear deterrent permanently and without recovery. The American position is changing. It cannot not change.
Day 25 also brings us news from one of the regions hardest hit by the indirect effects of this event, the Maldives. The government evacuated the majority of the island nation's approximately 500,000 citizens to emergency reception centers in India and Sri Lanka over the past 18 days. The evacuation was not complete. Approximately 40,000 people, mostly elderly, disabled, or unwilling to leave, remained on the islands. During a 35-minute pulse event centered above the northern Maldives this morning, the automated seawall control systems for the capital island of Malé failed. The seawall was not breached, but several low-lying streets flooded during a simultaneous high tide. 14 people were injured. The Maldivian president, speaking from Colombo, where the government in exile is based, delivered a statement that I want to read because it is remarkable. She said, my people have been told by the sea for generations that they live on borrowed time. We have heard that warning before. We hear it now from the sky. We do not have the luxury of indecision. We choose to live. Whatever form that living takes, we choose it. Her government has formally submitted Maldives' acceptance of Option 1 to the UN Council.
Day 26. 2 days remain. The world's major governments have, in the last 24 hours, arrived at a position. It is not perfect. It is not unanimous. There are 11 nations, including North Korea, which has been essentially unreachable for communication purposes for the past week, and 2 nations in active civil conflict whose government's authority to speak for their populations is disputed, that have not submitted any formal position. The aggregate position submitted by the 167 nations represented at the UN Emergency Council is a formal acceptance of Option 1, with the request that the elimination of relevant technologies be implemented in a manner that is supervised and transparent, and that the entities acknowledge their commitment to non-interference in all other aspects of human development. It is a negotiated surrender of the worst parts of ourselves, made under duress, and I think it is worth noting that this may be the most honest self-assessment our civilization has ever formally submitted to anyone.
I want to take a moment in these final days to account for what has been lost, because things have been lost, and it would be wrong to rush past them. The city of Dhaka is in crisis. Its infrastructure has been strained beyond recovery in the short term by the influx of internal migrants, and what was one of the most densely populated cities on Earth is now essentially ungovernable in any ordinary sense. Emergency services are running, food distribution is happening, but the formal systems of city management have collapsed. This is not unique to Dhaka. Karachi, Kinshasa, Port Moresby, Lagos, which has shown remarkable resilience but is under enormous strain. These are cities where the indirect effects of 26 days of global uncertainty have compounded pre-existing fragilities to the breaking point. They are not destroyed, but they are changed, and the rebuilding will take years. The people living through this, they are living through it with everything they had before today, plus everything this month has taken from them. That weight is real and must be acknowledged.
Day 27. 21 hours remain. The pulse events have stopped. As of 36 hours ago, no new pulse events have been recorded by any monitoring station anywhere on Earth. The 17 objects have not moved. The countdown is still running. We are monitoring it continuously, and it is still decrementing. But the pulses have stopped. Our analysts believe this represents an acknowledgement of the global response submitted to the UN Council. It is consistent with an entity that is evaluating whether the response it has received meets its criteria. We do not know the outcome of that evaluation. We do not know whether the acceptance of option 1 as submitted is sufficient, whether the language was precise enough, whether the 11 nations that did not formally respond will affect the outcome. We are 21 hours from the terminal point of the countdown, and we are in the most uncertain moment of this entire event.
I have spent 27 days on this broadcast. I have not slept more than 4 hours at a stretch. Neither has Alex. Neither have most of our production team. We are in the company of billions of people who have not slept well, who have held their families close, who have made phone calls to people they haven't spoken to in years, who have sat with their own mortality in a way that most of us spend our whole lives successfully avoiding. If I could say one thing to everyone listening right now, it would be this. Whatever happens in the next 21 hours, you have been extraordinary. The world in these 27 days has been extraordinary. There has been conflict and cruelty and fear and failure. There has also been more collective human solidarity, more spontaneous generosity, more genuine political cooperation across lines of ideology and history and mistrust than I have seen in my lifetime. Both things are true. Both things matter.
10 hours remaining. We have an update from the signal monitoring team in Geneva. The countdown continues to decrement normally. There is no deviation, no change in the signal's mathematical structure. The objects are stationary. Our governments are waiting. The world is waiting. Global communications are somewhat degraded but functioning. Most major cities are quiet. There are vigils being held in every major city, in every time zone. Candles, fires, screens projecting the countdown. In Nairobi, approximately 400,000 people have gathered in Uhuru Park. In Bogota, the streets around the Bolivar Square have been filled for 24 hours. In Seoul, the light installations along the Han River are still illuminated. In Kiev, there are people gathered despite all they have endured. In all of these places, there is not celebration and there is not despair. There is something else, a quality of human presence that does not have a perfect word in any language. Waiting together, aware that you are waiting together, finding something in that awareness.
5 hours remaining. We have just received an unexpected transmission. It arrived on the same frequency as the original signal, and translation is happening in real time. I am going to read from it as the translation comes in. The translation team is working live, and this is partial, but here it is. Quote, "The response received is noted. 156 of your sovereign units have indicated acceptance of option 1. 11 units have not responded. The 11 non-responding units do not alter the threshold of acceptable response. The response is accepted. The following will occur at the terminal point of the countdown. The relevant technologies as defined will be disabled across all installations regardless of location. This is non-negotiable and non-reversible. The monitoring period is concluded. We will not return. What you do with what remains is your own. End of transmission. That is it. That is the complete message.
Let me be precise about what that means. At the end of the countdown, now approximately 4 hours and 52 minutes away, every nuclear warhead on Earth, every intercontinental ballistic missile, every biological weapons stockpile, every orbital weapons platform, every system capable of what the entities have defined as civilization. Termination or biosphere collapse will be, simultaneously and permanently, disabled. Not merely turned off. Disabled. Non-reversible. And then they will leave. They said we have about 1 hour remaining in the countdown. We are monitoring everything in real time. The objects have not moved. The signal is steady. And somewhere out there, something decided that we were worth saving in the only way it could.
4 hours. I want to tell you something about the 11 countries that didn't respond formally to the UN Council. North Korea's government issued a statement in the last hour, terse and in the form of a brief official communique, saying only that North Korea notes the global resolution. The two nations in active civil conflict, I won't name them here because naming them would require explaining political context that neither helps our listeners nor honors the civilians in those countries who had no voice in the decision. Both have de facto governments that have verbally aligned with option 1 through back channels. The international community has agreed to treat all 11 as covered under the global submission. Everyone is covered. No one is being left to cessation. Whatever you think about the nations whose governments did not formally respond, the people in those nations, they are under this agreement too. They are alive, they continue.
2 hours remaining. I want to account for the numbers of this event as precisely as I can, because precision matters, and because these numbers represent real people and real costs. Total deaths attributable to contact event. Alpha, 4,912, as of 2 hours before the terminal point. That number includes 2,104 deaths from displacement-related causes, 876 from pulse event-related causes, 1,932 from violence and civil conflict attributable to the instability created by the event. It is, by the standards of any event of comparable global scale, a number that the emergency management community will describe as lower than projected. It is not a number that provides comfort. Each of those 4,912 people, I say it again, had a name.
40 minutes remaining. The world is quiet. I have never said that before on this broadcast, and I think it is the most important sentence I will say. The world is quiet. Not the silence of fear or exhaustion, though both of those are also present. Something else. Something harder to name. Our correspondents in 16 cities on every inhabited continent have been checking in over the last hour, and the word that comes up most consistently in their reports is still. The world is still. People are outside or at windows or gathered in public spaces not doing anything except being present. Being in their bodies in the world at the specific moment when the world is about to change irrevocably.
20 minutes. The countdown, as monitored by the Atacama Array and confirmed by 6 other facilities, will reach 0 at approximately, and I say approximately only because our reading of the alien countdown has a small margin of error, at approximately 11:47 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time tonight. Every nuclear nation on Earth has confirmed that its forces are on stand-down, weapons systems offline in the final minutes, not at the direction of the entities, but at the direction of their own governments, as a gesture of compliance and good faith. That this happened, that the 7 nuclear powers of Earth voluntarily stood down their weapons in the final 20 minutes, is something I would not have predicted on the morning of day 1.
10 minutes. I've been handed a note. The signal team in Geneva has confirmed the countdown will reach 0 in 10 minutes and 12 seconds from my mark. Mark. Our world ends one thing and begins something else in 10 minutes and 12 seconds. I want to use these final minutes to say that this broadcast, which has run continuously for 27 days and approximately 14 hours, has been the most important work of my life. I don't say that for personal reasons. I say it because you, the people listening, made it the most important work of my life. Every message you sent, every correspondent who called in from the dark, every expert who stayed on the line past their shift to explain one more thing, every ordinary person who found extraordinary words for what they were seeing and sent them to us. This broadcast was yours.
5 minutes. The 17 objects remain stationary. The signal is steady at its final decrement. Power grids globally are functioning. Communication systems are functioning. It is a normal night in the physical world, and also the most extraordinary night in the recorded history of this planet. I find that I am calm. I want our listeners to know that I am calm. Not because I am certain of the outcome. I am not. No one is. But because the work is done. The human race, imperfectly and under duress, made a choice. And tomorrow, the work begins again, with a world that is changed.
2 minutes. I'm going to ask everyone to simply be with us for these final 2 minutes. Don't change the channel. Don't put down your phone. Don't step away from the radio. Be here. Wherever you are in the world, in a refugee shelter in Germany, in a hill village in Nepal, in a hospital corridor in Tokyo, in a car pulled over on a highway in Texas, in a garden in Christchurch with your children, be here. Whatever is about to happen, be here for it.
1 minute. The countdown approaches 0. The objects are stationary. We are live. We are here.
30 seconds.
15 seconds.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The countdown has reached 0. We are monitoring all available data in real time. The objects, all 17, have changed their orientation simultaneously. They are turning, not toward Earth, away from Earth. They are pointing away from us, toward deep space. All monitoring stations confirm the same orientation shift. The signal, the countdown signal, has stopped transmitting. The frequency is silent. And from the signal team in Geneva, this has just come through. Every nuclear weapons facility on Earth has reported simultaneous system failure across all launch systems. All of them. In one moment. The warheads are inert. The missiles cannot fire. The biological weapons research programs at 6 facilities in 4 countries have reported complete deletion of digital research data and the inert conversion of all physical samples. We're still getting details on this. The weapons of mass destruction, the civilization-ending capacity of the human race, is gone. In one moment, it is gone.
The objects are moving. This is confirmed by the Atacama Array, by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, by the European Space Agency's tracking network. All 17 objects are accelerating, not toward Earth, away from us. From 340 kilometers altitude, they are gaining velocity at a rate that our tracking software is struggling to process. They are not moving at the speed of human spacecraft. They are moving at a speed that our analysts are describing simply as extraordinary. Within 12 minutes of the countdown reaching 0, the 17 objects, each 2 kilometers long, each one of them larger than any structure humanity has ever constructed, have passed the orbit of the moon. They are still accelerating. They are leaving.
They are leaving. That is confirmed. That is the headline for the first time in 27 days, that the headline is not about what they have done to us, or what we have decided, or what might happen. The headline is, they are leaving. The night sky above every meridian of Earth, for the first time in 27 days, contains only what it has always contained: stars and planets and the moon and the occasional glint of human-made satellites, all of them surviving, all of them turning in their old familiar courses. The alien objects are beyond detection range as of 41 minutes after zero.
In the hours following the terminal point, here's what we can confirm. No country was physically destroyed. No city was vaporized. No human civilization was terminated. The worst fears of the first hours, that this was an extinction event, did not come to pass. What came to pass was something else, something stranger and harder to categorize. We lost permanently the capacity to annihilate each other at the civilizational scale. We gained also permanently the knowledge that we are not alone in the universe and that others have been watching us and found us at the last possible moment of our most dangerous period. 4,912 people died in the 27 days of this event. Every one of them mattered. Every one of them is mourned.
In the weeks following the terminal point, here is what the world will face and what the world will not face. It will not face nuclear war, because there are no functioning nuclear weapons. It will not face large-scale biological or chemical warfare, because those programs have been disabled. It will face the rebuilding of fractured cities and the reintegration of 300 million displaced people. It will face the psychological and social reckoning of a civilization that has been forced to confront its own worst qualities and was given the opportunity to survive them. It will face the most extraordinary scientific and philosophical question in human history. What does it mean to know that we are not alone? That others have observed us, found us wanting in specific ways, intervened to correct one specific deficiency, and then left? What do we build in the space that has opened up?
Dhaka will rebuild. Lagos will rebuild. The Maldives, whose islands are still there, whose seawalls are intact, whose people are beginning to return from their temporary homes in Colombo and Chennai, will rebuild. The cities that held vigil, Nairobi, Bogota, Seoul, Kiev, are still standing. Every country that participated in this event, which is to say every country on Earth, still exists. No land was lost. No people were erased. The toll was real and will be carried for generations. But the civilizational slate was not wiped clean. What was wiped clean, what was permanently removed, was the most immediate mechanism by which we might have wiped ourselves clean. And whether you think that was imposed or gifted or both, it is done. It is the world we now live in. And it is, by any honest accounting, a world with slightly more room in it for the kind of future that Dr. Okonkwo described on day 3, when she told us that the most honest thing anyone had ever said to us about ourselves was also an offer to be better.
The final accounting, because facts matter and precision matters, and these numbers will be in every history that is written from this day forward. Deaths in the 27 days of contact event Alpha, 4,912. Countries functionally destroyed, none. Countries partially lost, none, though several island nations are permanently changed in their population composition by the evacuations that took place. Countries that suffered significant infrastructure damage requiring multi-year recovery, 9, including Bangladesh, the Philippines, Australia, and Mozambique. The nuclear arsenals eliminated, approximately 13,400 warheads from 9 nuclear states. The weapons programs disabled, 41 discrete programs across 23 countries. The number of alien objects observed, 17. The number that remain in this solar system as of final tracking, 0. The number of days we had, 27. The choice we made, to keep living and to surrender the most immediate means by which we might have stopped.
This is Sierra Lane. It has been a privilege to be your voice during the most remarkable period in the history of humanity. The road ahead is not easy. The grief is real. The work is enormous. But this morning, the morning after everything, the sun is rising over the Atlantic, and I can see it from the studio window, and it is the same sun it has always been, unremarkable and perfect. And below it, the world is still here. You are still here. We are still here. I don't know what comes next for any of us, but I believe. I have to believe, and I think the last 27 days have given me reason to believe, that we are more than our worst capacity. We just spent a month proving it. This has been Continental Emergency Radio. Take care of each other.
This is Alex Mercer. Stay informed. Stay connected. Stay human. We'll be back with regular programming and ongoing coverage of the recovery effort shortly. But for now, go outside. Look at the sky. It belongs to us again. And we kept it.